Now I'm gonna do something a little bit more serious. Something that's not really that funny. And this is an old video from what's it called? I almost said The Blind Side. The Brian Banks story. So this was like 3 years ago. This is from 2019 on TV1. And I saw the movie. I finally got a chance to saw the movie. I'll probably say maybe it was 2 years ago. Yeah, I think this is probably. I don't know when this movie came out, but I do remember seeing it on Hulu 2019, and I talked to Dr. Tia San Johnson about the movie, and I told him I didn't like it. It was washed. It didn't really hit the points that need to be hit, and it just kind of created a invisible boogeyman to where we're not even looking at the obvious problem. And he informed me that, like, man, they had to create a fictional female character, which was the light-skinned woman. She's not even a real person. They had to make her up just so the film would have more of a female, a balanced female view or whatever, versus, Brian Banks all by himself, and then, all the females he knows are like terrible and all that shit. But anyway, I'm gonna let this run.
Football star who was wrongly convicted of a crime he didn't commit. His story is the basis for this inspirational movie. Let's take a look.
Brian Banks was 16 years old when he was accused of a crime he did not commit. He lost 11 years.
Now, if you don't even know this story, you would probably think, if I told this story to a Gen Z nigga, someone who ain't really familiar with this story, and I remember this story when this first broke out. Like, to be honest with you, this dude's lucky as a motherfucker. He's lucky because at the same time, this was when that Brock Turner case was really at the same time, and there was no leniency on Brock Turner because everybody was tired of him. He was white. He was cocky. He thought that just because he played lacrosse, I don't know or played sports, or he came from a rich family, that he was gonna get off easy. He got no love, and Brian Banks could have easily had that same heat, but I think the reason why he didn't was really because the person that blamed him wasn't a white woman, it was a black chick. And I think they just kind of, it was like, I think the media just didn't really feel like it needed to beat him upside the head that long, because it was a black chick that blamed him. And, they just kind of wanted to make an example or just prove a point, and then just let him go afterwards.
Scholarship. He was prevented from playing football. The system is broken.
I know the system doesn't care about me.
Now you're gonna hear them talk a lot about. Now this is the fictional character. This character was completely made up. This person does not exist. So you're gonna hear them, the host of the talk show, talk about the system, and it's gonna be very vague. But you'll see why you're gonna get pissed off.
But you didn't deserve what happened to you.
Brian's gonna run out of time.
I'll tell you what's extraordinary. I am.
My God, I have chills. Please welcome to the circle Sherry Shepherd and Brian Banks.
Give it some love right there, right there.
Yes.
We're so grateful for both of you being here today to talk about this amazing movie based on your life. Sherry, let's start with you. Tell us what drew you to this story.
I read the script and reading about Leomi, who is Brian Banks' mother,
and her faith.
And that's really what the movie was about. It really had zero to do with this brother, because they don't want to make black women look bad. So really the movie is actually about Sherry Shepherd's character, who plays Brian Banks' mother, and it's more of a Christian, and it was marketed as that too. It's more of a Christian movie, to where it's more so of a mother that kept the faith of her son, and God willing, he was found not guilty in a system that would have had his ass locked up forever simply because he was a black man.
Fight for her son. When he was incarcerated, every other weekend she drove 3.5 hours to see him and 3.5 back. She never gave up on her belief for her child. And as a mother raising a young...
And I ain't gonna take that away from her, but this is his story. And this movie really could have went a lot further than a lot of people would think. But it was pretty much because instead of him having the mic, she has the mic. And so they're going to just focus it and dumb down his story just to make it seem like, okay, it's a broken system. And it's like, hey, it's not just about a broken system. It's a lot bigger than that.
Black boy, that's your worst nightmare, to get that phone call that your son has been arrested.
Right.
And so it just, her strength drew me to the script, and I said, I gotta play it.
Yes.
Now, being a comedic actress is a little hard.
Right. We heard you fall for it.
Yeah, I had to really fight for the role with some really amazing actresses, and I'm so blessed to be able to honor Leonie by telling her side of this story. Beautiful.
But Brian, I mean, my
Told you.
God, I couldn't imagine. 16 years old, on top of the world, all-American football star, and all of a sudden your life just turns upside down. Describe for us what that was like.
Yeah, at that time in 2002, I was 11th in the nation as a linebacker coming out of Long Beach Poly High School, being recruited by every Division I school you could think of. And then the next moment, I was in prison, in jail, fighting a case that, I shouldn't have been fighting. And just to watch my mom, as you said, do everything that she could, in all of her fight, just kind of fall on deaf ears, to lose all the scholarship opportunities, to not be able to graduate from high
possibly
school
go pro.
and possibly go pro. Just all of these things that you're thinking about, all while being in a cage like an animal, kidnapped away from your family. It's all too surreal.
Right. Oh my goodness. How did you keep your mind together?
Yeah.
How did you do that?
I had those moments, I am human, so I had those many moments in lots of days where, I was angry, I wanted revenge. Every negative emotion you can think of, I had it. But I had to reprioritize and reorganize the way I saw myself and the things that were happening around me.
Yeah.
And I think what was big for me was knowing that I couldn't allow one moment in time to dictate the duration of my life, that I wanted more than what I was being accused and labeled as, and that if no one was going to fight for truth, then it would have to.
And I'll give Brian Banks that, because if he would have whooped that bitch's ass like most niggas would have, that bitch probably would have been like, if it was other niggas, she probably would have been she probably would have been found in a lake or some shit. But it's a good thing he toyed around with her and he was able to get that confession. And that's like a 1 in a million thing that I still to this day can't even believe he got that out of her, man. That's crazy. But it was a good thing he played dumb, and he got what he needed out of that. And most niggas couldn't do that shit.
Me to fight for my own truth.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you did that. Sherry, really quickly, how were you able to draw from your experience as a mother? And in those scenes, were you thinking of Jeffrey? Like, no, seriously, were you thinking of him?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Jeffrey was on my mind the entire time of having to advocate. My son was born early at 5.5 months with special needs, and I'm always have had to advocate for him. So in these scenes, and I would talk to Brian. He loves his mother so much, and so just pulling in from that strength and always having to fight and always believing that you can.
Yeah,
Jeffrey
absolutely.
was the impetus.
Good.
So Brian, how many years exactly did you spend in prison and away from your family?
5 years and 2 months. So I went in at 16, I came home at 22, and then an additional 5 years on strict custody parole. So I registered, couldn't live within 2,000 feet of any school or park, had his GPS on my ankle for the, a total of 5 years. So.
Wow. Yeah. And coming back out into society, how'd you make that transition?
Resiliency. Wow. Just trying my best not to allow the negative to overcome the positive.
Kind of waiting for them to get to me.
Knowing that I wanted more for me than anybody else could want more for me. So I just continued to just try and make the best of the worst situation that I could. Try and uphold the promises that I made to my mom as a young boy of being the best man that I could be.
Yes.
And just never giving up on myself,
Do you feel like justice, I know over a period of time, you gave a lot of years of your life away, but do you feel like that you got true redemption with being a part of this, with your story becoming a movie?
I would say that in a lot of ways, yes. I can't go back and reclaim the years that were taken away.
Right.
But I always say it's not what you go through, but how you allow it to affect you and what you do moving forward.
Yeah.
So for me, moving forward is to use my hardship, our traumatic experience in order to help other people in similar situations. And I feel like I'm doing my part.
Yeah. What advice would you give to a mother being in this situation? And what advice would you give to a young man being in this situation?
Talk to the moms.
Mothers, our children, they need us. They need our belief in them. I tell Jeffrey all the time, you got to tell me the truth and I'll protect you with everything I got.
Right.
And that informs everything he does.
Absolutely.
Which is what happened with Brian.
Yeah. And I would say to young men and women to just slow down, prioritize your life, and whatever it is that you want in life, make that your overall focus and not allow the distractions.
This nigga just making up shit.
Beautiful.
Well, thank you so much to both of you for being here today. We truly do appreciate that. Thank you for sharing.
This might have been the wrong video. I thought this was it, but I'll just spitball what I don't like about this situation. Is that this dude could have been really bigger than what he is today. He could have been a real advocate for a lot of men in the future who go through this shit. And I kind of I'm really frustrated. I'm really mad that he didn't do that. Because he wanted to waste so much time entertaining these women and making sure that they get praises for shit that he did or he had went through. This panel should have been about men. This really even should have been a sister circle. And that's the thing I kind of find frustrating about it. I didn't see Brian Banks talking to a lot of men, particularly black men, because he could have easily gotten hated. He could have easily gotten hated in heat. What's going on here? Alright, whatever. This website is using. Come on. Let me just take off other sites, maybe. Yeah, but anyways, I haven't seen him talk to any men, any black men, or be any platforms. He's mostly entertaining, women and making their egos feel good because, his mama stuck with him. And I ain't got no issues with his mom, but I'm like, dude, it was black men. Really, it was just men in general, because I seen a lot of white dudes who were fighting for him and reading his story. I remember when this dude was still in jail. It was like it was just yesterday. He was in jail, man. I remember that shit. I remember dudes were looking up his story on how fucked up it was. But you didn't hear these females talk about it. All they wanted to do was talk about his mother in the movie and just staying strong. But I'm like, hey, you have an innocent black man that went to jail because of what? A black female. And there's no respectability politics to talk about, hey, Why is a mother and her daughter plotting against a black boy who damn near has the world in his hands? And nobody has an explanation for that shit. But I'm gonna try to find the real video that I wanted to look at.